Good afternoon. Design Review Board 2 public meeting of July 2nd, 2009 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker's cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You'll be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. And next is roll call. Mr. Baladian?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Present.
Mr. Garagos?
Here.
Mr. Malikian?
Here.
Mr. Zarifian?
Here.
Report regarding the posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on June 25th of 2009. Oral communications. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on an item not a part of this agenda? Any cards by any chance?
We don't have any cards.
The next thing to do is the review calendar. At this point, we don't have any staff announcements. There's nothing on the consent calendar, and we're onto our regular.
I just want to add one thing. I understand today is Mr. Carter's last session, and so we want to thank him. And it was really a pleasure in having you here. You'll be missed.
We have something prepared. I was going to wait until after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
after the meeting.
I'll say
that's
my
fine.
words.
Great, and I'll be able to say my thank yous at that time.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll do that then. So then let's go ahead and go down the list. And the first one on the item is 701 South Central. Are we ready for that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This first item before you, again, is located at 701 South Central Avenue, case number 2009-036-A. It is a first-time submittal for final review. Basically, the project consists of primarily strictly just a facade remodel of the existing banquet hall. The existing building was built in 1964. It was designed in a contemporary style. It currently has a boxy appearance, as you probably noted through a site visit or perhaps in the photos that are currently being passed around. It's constructed with concrete tilt-up walls and attached structural columns throughout. The building is 2 stories in height. The second floor is accessible from the exterior stairs on the south elevation. And the existing use, again, of the building is a banquet hall. The project description, again, basically consists of the facade changes, including also relocating the front entry location and the use of new, updated, contemporary design features and materials. I'd like to emphasize that the project does not involve new floor area. So again, it is strictly the facade remodel and some minor interior floor area modifications, which I will go into details later in the presentation. But again, it does not consist of additional floor area. It will remain as it currently is. I'd like to, at this point, I'll briefly go over the neighborhood and then into details regarding the proposal. And if there are any questions throughout my presentation, please interrupt me and I will be happy to answer them. If not, if I'm unable to, the applicant is here and will go into details regarding the project. As stated, the project is located on Central Avenue, which is designated as a C3 commercial service zone. The neighboring properties or uses is also commercial, with the exception of the zoning to the west, which is designated as R2250, which is multifamily residential, and there are multifamily buildings, and and single-story developments, or excuse me, single-family developments in that area as well. The design guidelines that apply in this case would be the city's urban design guidelines. The project is located in the South Central District and designated as community services in the general plan. The primary, or in this case, the architectural character in this area is varied, as you can probably note while driving throughout the neighborhood, and as seen in the photos. The immediate street block along Central Avenue primarily consists of more moderate-scale office buildings, pedestrian-scale uses, retail uses, commercial shopping centers. Architecturally, there are diverse patterns that do exist in the immediate area. Again, and architecturally, as presented, or in this area, represents a variety of mixture of architectural designs. So therefore, due to this contrasting intensity of development and the abutting residential uses, the mixture, the applicant is proposing to enhance through the use of, in this case, the design and the building material to enhance the existing conditions and to integrate with the existing surrounding. The existing site plan conditions will be maintained as therefore consistent with the general neighborhood pattern. As a result of the proposal, there are no changes being presented or proposed to the existing site plan conditions. As it relates to mass and scale, the existing building mass, the overall height and scale will be maintained. The facade improvement includes breaks in the design and providing visual rhythm to the streetscape, thereby encouraging pedestrian activity and interest. As the architectural character of the area is varied, again, the proposed design is appropriate and will serve to enhance the neighborhood. As it relates to the building height and setbacks, they will remain as is. No changes are being proposed as a result of the project proposal. So the overall mass and scale of the building will not change due to the fact, again, that the project strictly involves the facade remodel only. The overall design and detailing. The project features a variety of materials consistent with contemporary architecture. As part of the design components, some of the items that are represented in the drawings and are being proposed include, again, a variety of components of the building facade, such as recesses, roof overhangs, and other similar architectural treatment. The project features a variety of materials, including recycled design elements, and some of these proposed materials includes perforated metal panels, clear and frosted glass, and LED lighting. Some additional changes to the facade and floor plan include relocating the main entrance to the building at the northwest corner fronting Central Avenue. At this point, I'll approach the building and kind of walk you through what that change means and the general area surrounding the property. So what's being proposed, as I just indicated, the front entry, currently right now there's an entrance on Maple Street, and that is basically the only entrance for or in this case the patrons for the building. So what they're proposing to do as part of the facade and again the minor floor area remodel that's being proposed would be, here's the existing floor plan, which shows that there's an existing banquet hall room on that corner, on the corner intersecting Central Avenue and Maple. What they're proposing is to eliminate that one banquet room and create a foyer in that area and a new entry for the patrons to the facility. The existing entrance along Maple Street will remain an entrance, but will be, of course, remodeled as part of the proposal, and I'll go into that as well later. But that basically is the interior remodel floor plan change that is highlighted on the floor plan. And as indicated, I'll go into detail with respect to the new entrance and the details that are being incorporated and design details. But yeah, the main thing is that that particular corner will actually be enhanced. The guidelines encourage providing maximum transparency on the first floor facades, including pedestrian entrances or openings to a lobby, and for that reason, again, that's why the applicant is proposing new glass doors at the main entrances to the building and frosted glass design element at the front and street side northeast corner. Regarding the architectural details, I'll go into details as noted in my staff report. However, the applicant does also have a representation of the materials that is being proposed. I do have a reduced version of the material board. I can pass that around, but we thought it would actually be important for you to get a real clear idea and understanding of what is being proposed, so good visual representation of the materials. So they are here, the perforated metal sheet, and also I believe later in the presentation the applicant will actually operate this, because I think he needs to plug it in so you can actually see the effects of this, of what is being proposed. Some of the buildings in the neighborhood, again, appear boxy, similar to the subject property, the way it currently exists. So conversely, the new design features consistent undulation through the use of materials, and also creating additional interest on this simple boxy form. Unlike other buildings in the neighborhood, the project's facades incorporate thoughtful artistic treatment throughout. According to the guidelines, articulation of the building facade can be achieved by using fenestration, reveals, and changes in surface and texture and variation in the building plane. So, in addition, materials on the building should physically change to create an overall component of color and variety in order to create interest. And for this reason, the proposed design is able to achieve this through the use of high-quality green material consistent with contemporary architecture, including recycled perforated metal panels, transparency, and LED lighting energized with new rooftop solar panels. The exterior facade will be wrapped with perforated curvilinear-shaped recycled metal panels. Each waveform panel will be custom-made with the following dimensions: 48 inches wide by 48 inches long. And again, that would be these design elements right here, which will cover the entire facade. And here again is a sample of that particular sheet panel. In addition, each individual panel will have a 2-inch band on top and on the bottom, and will be assembled over a metal frame, emphasizing the continuous flow of the element. The texture will have random and varied perforation pattern in an effort to avoid an industrial appearance. The panel configuration is purposely designed to divide the building mass into 4 4-foot-high horizontal bands. Each individual metal sheet panel will be attached to a building frame consisting of a U-shaped channel which will be constructed onto the existing tilt-up concrete wall. There is a cut sheet, actually there's a cross-section view on that, so I wanted to draw your attention to the actual detail, and I believe it's also in your packets if you need a close-up of how this particular element is being attached to the building. And it's quite intricate and very detailed, so it's kind of interesting how it all works. I won't go into details, but I'll have the applicant address that later in his presentation. But I kind of gave a brief synopsis about it in my report. In addition, the metal sheet frame is designed with 2-inch by 2-inch aluminum tubes, again, which will be attached to this U-shaped shaped channel. And the purpose of this is to obviously not just to provide a sturdy structural overlay to hold the exposed metal sheet panels in place, but also to enable this flow-like wave form that is being presented throughout the facade. The building parapet will also undergo some changes. A 60-inch by 48-inch solid metal panel will be used to cover the existing parapet and roof overhang. This feature will create more of a strong and rigid building outline and cover the existing column heads. The proposed lighting system that is being introduced will be, again, LED lights. Half-inch diameter continuous LED lighting tubes will be screened inside the sheet metal framework and will not be visible from public view. They are proposing, as I alluded to earlier, new photovoltaic solar panels which will provide the energy needed to feed the lighting system. Again, while it may not be obviously the lighting system apparent during the day, at night is where obviously this will be able to be appreciated. So most of the lighting system, if not all, will take place in the evening during the evening hours, and when operating, the lighting system will be programmed to transition different colors. So again, I don't know what type or which colors, but perhaps the applicant can address that. But that will be the result of providing the backlighting of the metal sheet panels and create a very interesting look and light the facade and provide interest to the building. Again, the lighting system will only be used to light the facade only. Future proposed signs shall not be integrated or part of the facade lighting system because it would not comply with the zoning code. Animated signs are not permitted, and based on the definition, that's why future signs would not be able to be part of the lighting system. The signs shown on the elevation drawings are for reference only and are not part of the DRB scope. Lastly, we discussed the relocation of the main entrance, so I won't go into that. And we discussed also the roof forms. Basically, the roof design will not change. It will remain flat except for the changes regarding the parapet. Regarding the mechanical equipment and screening, there is a condition in the report and details regarding a recent site inspection which showed that some improvement should be made to the existing screening for the trash area enclosure and also compliance with the zoning code. There are specific requirements. It is noted in your report, so I won't go into details with respect to that. Lastly, based on staff's analysis and comments stated above, staff recommends that the project be approved based with the one comment which be again to provide accurate screening for the trash area and mechanical equipment in compliance with the zoning code. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions for staff.
Yeah,
Yes?
I just have one question. When you alluded to the guidelines for maximum transparency, and I could look it up myself, but I would just like to ask you, the guidelines, are they specific to banquet halls, or is this a commercial
No.
building, restaurant? What is the actual heading?
They're specific toward commercial property.
So it's a commercial property
Right.
guideline, okay.
Yeah. Or buildings in this particular area.
Just for clarification, I can ask the architect, that gray area, it says that the panel, is this right back in, is that what it is? Is that
This
part
would
of
be,
the
no,
property?
this is the building next door. So here's the
actually
property
plotting
line. I'm sorry?
They're
Yeah.
plotting that?
No, they're not touching. That building's set back. I believe there's a
Just a
parking
graphic
area.
representation.
Yeah, but it says solid sheet
That
metal
number 9 is
panel.
identified as an
9.
existing neighboring
I'm sorry.
building.
I thought it's 4. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yes.
The parking lot that's on the west side is actually part of this project, right?
The parking lot is located at the rear of the property, so you would need to access it from Maple Street.
But it is part of the site. It should have been shown as part of the site plan, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because it wasn't shown, I just want to make sure that it was part of it, so.
You know, they're knocking down one of the panels, right? For the corner. Where they,
Which panel?
Over here. Where they exactly doing?
Yeah, over here, yes, they would obviously have to remove some of the tilt-up,
Tilt-up.
but I will have the applicant address that.
So they're removing the tilt-up panels.
And they're incorporating
replacing
frosted glass
frosted glass.
for the ceiling height.
I must have been reading when you said that the trash enclosure is where.
Yeah, the trash enclosure, let me orient myself.
Bottom left corner?
No, the trash enclosure is actually located in the parking area. If you look at the photo, you access the parking area from Maple Street, and
You want to show it on
when you
here?
reach the rear, it's back here. There it is.
At the
All the
corner.
way at the
Okay.
back.
Okay.
That's going to be interesting.
But again, it is located in what is supposed to be an enclosure, but it's not fully enclosed, and that was based on a recent site visit that I
The fire department
Conducted.
checked this once, man.
fire department?
I'm not sure if the fire department checked these plans already.
It would be somewhere down in here, that equipment area.
Yes,
Down there.
that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay. Any more questions from staff? Aram Alajaji?
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
members of the board. My name is Zaram Alajajian. For the record, the address is 320 West Arden, City of Glendale. There's the project architect of the proposed project. Let me approach the board so I can
Please.
try to explain. Actually, Milka did a very thorough report here. Desire of my clients to facelift the building. You look at the photos, it's a tilt-up structure, has designated columns in certain locations, which then converts to become like a top of the column heads and supports the projection, which is about 4 to 5 feet off the face of this wall, actually the boundary wall. So that projects out to that point. So initially we came up with different ideas. There's no reason to paint it or put a stucco or put additional columns and so forth. What this suggests, this is basically sustainable architecture. It's green totally. What we are proposing here, recyclable metal panels, and those metal panels are not just the standard metal panels. They're custom made because the perforation, the way it's going to be done, as you can see it, the openings are very random here, and you can see some solid areas. You won't find this in the stores or buying from the manufacturer. So we're going to be custom making this from the metal panels. Actually, the concept is to wrap the building around with the horizontal bends, which will break the scale of that entire massing of the concrete, and sort of introduce the horizontal waves that will wrap around the building. However, the wrap and the metal paneling itself wouldn't do the job. If you look at it in the evening, you want to have some sort of a flare added to that. So in order to reinforce the wave and the lighting throughout the streetscape area or to the building, make it a little bit more visible, we're suggesting to implement the LED lighting, which would be hidden behind this edges of the two panels, ups and downs. I have a panel here which we can demonstrate a little bit later on. But again, the purpose of this just to facelift the building. We're not changing the floor area. We're not changing the parking. We're not changing the landscaping or anything like that. It's just the facelift of the building. We're trying to enhance the elevation of the building. However, we felt that there's a need of creating the entry from the Central Avenue, because the entrance, the way it is right now, is pretty narrow. You can see it on the photographs, and it doesn't allow good visibility from the street corner. So owner was ready to sacrifice one of the banquet rooms in there and to create a foyer. And after doing all these improvements, and we can open up. Actually, we're not removing the panel; we're cutting the panel. The structure will remain there. The opening would be at this size.
Saw cutting.
Yeah, we're saw cutting the panel, and we spoke to structural engineer. It's all possible. There's no problem with that. Metal will wrap around the building. In certain areas, you will see the glasses coming out, and the way this is going to be assembled. Actually, I put a picture here from the manufacturers and another project. The way it's done. It's basically supported on the horizontal. If you look at the section here, horizontal sort of an I-beams, which will run behind every panel line horizontally throughout the project. And then vertically, we'll have in and out supporting brackets, which will support the metal panel itself, the perforated metal panel itself. And as I say, the metal panel up and down will hold the LED lighting in behind, which in the daytime you won't be able to see it. I don't know if the plug is working over here with the plug it on. Could you bring that extension cord, Armin, so we could probably plug it from the inside, so you could see the effect of. Just for a second. This looks a little bit brighter. This is not the way we're going to get it there. And we will be able to control the lighting. And the lighting will be controlled. We're gonna come in and actually the edges will be darker. We basically will be illuminating the corner itself. We don't wanna illuminate most of the building on the side or the driveway area, which is, this will not get any illumination. So basically it will start from the Maple Street, get brighter at the corner, and will die in coming closer to the Central Avenue. So.
Can I just ask you, you said you'll have control, will they be on dimmers, or?
No, it will be computerized control. Now, the way we're going to use the source for the electricity, it will be placed on the rooftop. We have the roof plan. Yeah, we have solar panels, which we're going to be putting in the back of the parapet. That will not be visible. So the solar panels itself, and I have a cut sheet for that if you want to look at it. Solar panels itself, they're like 12 inches by 12 inches, will be held at the parapet line, and they will supply the entire electricity being used to illuminate the facade. It's very simple, as I said, and it's a very straightforward project. We try a contemporary approach, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
How many questions?
Is that a buyback on the solar? Because it's nighttime, right? So it's
We don't know, probably so. We're
a battery or something.
Mhm.
Okay. I have a question.
Fine.
I think it's lovely. My question is really that view, and that's what struck me was that was going to be my question, was what happens to that area below, and that you see all that structure.
we're going to be. This is different project.
No, I understand that. No, I realize, I understand that. What I meant was, what is the nature of the panel that you're proposing at the bottom? On the bottom?
Back here, it will be similar to portions of it.
underside.
Oh, this side will be all solid.
No, the underside of the way.
This
The
here,
other way. Yeah.
solid panel, and then this is all solid metal panel.
How about the areas where the light is coming down?
This here,
Yeah. Where the
this will be perforated panel.
perforated panels.
Same as that.
Now, I guess the issue, you're saying that this is all custom cut.
Right.
That'll be the case that you'll have some solid at the edge. It won't be like the squares are going off.
Correct. You look at closely, and you can see it in the rendering. There's about 1 inch on either side of
So
it.
as this thing's serpentining around, there'll still be solid
Yeah.
at the edge. Like this? So this would happen.
Right,
solid.
all around.
Now, are the lights going to be shining out or in similar to this?
Yeah.
It would be similar to that.
Right.
So
So it's going to be washed.
Oh, on the one small element here, we're going to have also a light on the very top of this one panel, the very last panel, which will uplight the parapet edge that curves itself, because we don't have any light source up here, and this is solid metal panel. The last one, and a neck, that little neck, which is recessed about 6 to 8 inches, that runs all the way through the building, and it surfaces the building. So, the projected column capitals, so-called, they will fall into the spaces where you have a full metal you're seeing. The waves are happening wherever it breaks apart in between.
You said you weren't doing landscaping work, but wouldn't you have to?
Yeah, actually, the area we're not changing, but
Yeah.
what we are doing, we're proposing to have a curb along the building at this side, and I do believe the landscaping plan is here, and it's pretty straightforward, simple, and a modernistic design, to complete the base of the building, so you can see them here.
you've gone through extensive detailing of this panel. Can you explain a little bit about the corner glass and how does that work? Where does it get attached? And how does it hit the floor? One, the second thing is being that it is perforated and you have all these perforation, in the mornings when you do get light coming in, you are going to be able to, at a certain level, I'm assuming, see the existing building. Any ideas and thoughts and color or anything on the back existing?
Right. We have two ways of handling that, and we were still experimenting. As you can see, we're very careful about the detailing, and we want the building to look good. One way of doing it is just painting it. It's all one color. That actually will look as one. You will really not notice the background. The second option is using the secondary layer back there to enhance the entire building. To have it one element back there. When you look at it through the perforation, you can still see the same element through. So it will not be any destruction. Now, talking about the glass, glass will extend, you will see a mullion here, metal mullion down here, about 8 inches, that will support this glass. And on the top, also, we have brackets which will support the glass. So there are glass panels.
Now, you do have those columns. Is it going to go in front of the columns?
Yeah,
The mullions
it's right
gonna
here.
sit-
It's
Okay,
from
so
here
it's
to
gonna-
here.
Okay.
So,
It will run in front of the columns.
beautiful design. The glass, you have almost 20 feet high. So we're behind, so you're gonna soak up the panel, but what elevation you're cutting the panel? Because you have the roof beams, you're gonna be,
Well, the glass has a couple of joint lines. One would be here, the other one would be here. It's not visible in that rendering. That other one, which
the other question is, are you gonna end up with the glass is frosted,
yes.
totally frosted, right? So behind it, you might have some structural, you won't be visible. Are you gonna do X braces on it?
Mhm.
Then my other one, the question always comes up with this type of design, birds. What's your, as a client, how would you, birds and maintenance? Because birds are ruthless.
Right. Let me
They're gonna trash your building.
indicate this. Actually, the detail, the photo you see here, we're not projecting this far out. This is a different project. This is like 4 to 5 feet. Ours is about 2 feet. Maybe we can put some sort of a screen there on the top, which is invisible, so the birds cannot see,
You have to, you
Wire.
don't want birds
Or run a
filled
hot
up
wire,
your
something like that.
elevation.
Low voltage wire.
I could just see all birds filled up, all that facade.
Well, if it's filled up then, it will be filled up now too. It's a similar facade.
I mean, and then the color that Alan said, I mean, you have to be careful with that color, the background color, with
Yeah.
the smog, the maintenance, because once it gets dirty, how are they gonna come back and clean it or paint it?
Well, this is washable because it's powder coated, and it's the method that we're going to have this metal panels made. They're giving us like a lifetime guarantee that there's no corrosion or any color change will happen. We spoke to manufacturer on that. Nowadays, there are many buildings done like this. I mean, we're not the first actually introducing this. I'm sure you've seen it around. So,
How big of a panel size are you using?
we're using 4x8s, but it may break. I'm sorry.
Are they removable?
Yeah. They're all screwed at this. This will come and wrap around another inch and will be screwed on the top. And if you look at the vaves, the radiuses of each, in and out, they're all the same. You just put them vice versa, and that will create the wave for you.
Let me ask you one more question. It has nothing to do with the design, but that door, you see that door that you remove, double doors, from the existing, from the
This?
big home? This one.
Yeah.
You see, you're limiting your, the exiting. The exiting, you might have a problem.
Well, we have an ability to open it up here. It needs 2 exits more than half of a diagonal, and this basically satisfies that. This becomes an exit. This is no more a hall, because this is a foyer. So there used to be a banquet hall, and the exit was here and here.
I know, but
Yeah, we can check that.
if you have three,
I'm not
what is it? So
concerned
how many
about that.
people there? 200 or 300?
This is, I don't even have the number here, 340 seats.
You're gonna have all going through that
You have-
double door? It's gonna
Well,
be
this door
crazy.
is not drawn, we were not paying attention on the plan. You have
Legal
2 here, one here, and probably one there.
Well, we're not going to worry about that.
Yeah,
I
I'm
just,
not doing any
that's-
interior.
You said that I like it.
Okay. Well, any more questions?
Except one other small thing.
Yeah, we do that.
Go ahead.
One question. Do you think it will be necessary to have some kind of translucent backing to this so that
We thought about that.
it won't be occupied by other
Yeah, we kind of thought about that, but that would be the last resort because we want this metal panel to breathe at the same time. We don't want to have the perforation and put something in the back so to look a fake, you know. We're debating that, but, you know, I think the panel itself shows that the room between the perforation and the backing, it needs to be at least 2 inches or more in order to create that airspace so the light could shine through.
Any more questions?
Yeah, the project extends down towards the parking lot, and there's some structures, the block wall and the wrought iron and stuff. Is there anything that can be done with those, or you have any proposal for anything that's happening on that? It doesn't show on your plan, but it's an extension of your property. It just seems like it's a little, you're doing such a fabulous job here, and then that's sort of the leftover area.
This existing building is not part of...
Now, further to the west, along the...
This is alley, a driveway, and comes up here. This is loading area.
Right, and then your parking
there's-
lot is on the other side, right?
The parking lot is behind this a wall. It's a block wall, concrete block wall. So you want the block wall to be metal panel?
Or at least stuccoed or painted or something, just to kind of, it looks a little...
You're carrying the perforated metal.
That's what I'm saying,
over.
just to get it, someone to address it.
One more question. I think probably I should ask now.
Yeah.
What are your present and future parking? I mean, obviously you might have some valet needs. What are the plans in terms of
Well, we're not
controlling
involved with the
traffic?
operations. We're just
For-
facelifting this thing.
Yeah, but
They do have a
by-
valet parking there.
By adding the entry on the central and
That doesn't change
Maple corner.
that doesn't change the occupant load. That even takes it down.
But what I'm asking is that it's going to probably create
Oh.
traffic
Yeah, good question.
kind of
Sure.
flow in a different way.
Let me explain you how it works. Mainly their valet is done back here. They have valet people standing by. Their parking is here. They pull out here and then they turn around and bring the car up in the front. No cars are parked in this area. You can drive by probably the weekends or nights. You know, they have some events. You can see it. There's no parking here. It's all red
But
curb.
I have a feeling that it's gonna be valet up front. This doesn't make sense.
It's red, it's right in the corner.
It's red.
It's gonna be,
It's still going to be, the operation is still going to stay the same.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
We don't have any more cards, so I'm going to close the public session. Who would like to go first?
I'll make it quick. Very nicely done. I think it's a very nice project. I'm glad that the bottom of those undulating forms have a metal piece to enclose them. I think it'd be unfortunate to see all the structure below. That's very nice. It would have been nice if the rest of that site was on there, because I think that's a little bit of the missing piece. I think it's going to, especially when this looks so great, that is sort of leftover space. So we can talk about what to do with that, but I think the idea we mentioned about maybe stuccoing the block wall or doing something with the wrought iron, or also include that landscape area that's on the side street within the landscape plan. So that would be upgraded also. So it looks more like a whole facility, like the whole thing is brought up to that very nice level that they're proposing. So that's about it.
as I said, great design, great improvement from the old design. It's a straightforward. We responded for everything we asked. I don't have any. It's okay with me. I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Carter?
Yes, I would just compliment the architect and the applicant for wanting to upgrade the facade of this. Banquet halls, but not only banquet halls, restaurants that are designed without windows. To this board member, they have I have a strange reaction to them. They don't seem very friendly or something. They're just, and yet you could see a warehouse. A warehouse doesn't have windows, and a sound stage certainly doesn't. But something about a restaurant, a banquet hall, needs some kind of a pleasant facade. So I compliment them for trying to upgrade this. My only thoughts, and I'm still unclear, the lighting. Applicant said it would be computerized. I asked if it was on dimmer. I'm hoping that computerized means that the light levels can be adjusted. Does anybody have an answer to that? Yes.
The architect is nodding his head with a yes.
Yes. Okay. And of course, then it becomes, I'm sitting here, well, I said, put it on 2, and the owner says, hey, put it on 11. That'll, we'll wake the whole block up. So, because I think that just that one little panel was giving off quite a bit of ambient light in a lighted room here. So I think the blue bottle down on Central might be a phrase at some point. But I do think it's pleasant and a unique approach to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also I think it's a very nice design. I have a couple of one is sort of maybe both of them are kind of suggestions and questions. The first one is that the corner entry, if the parking is on the west side and you have the big entry on Maple Street, which is the existing one, as people will park, I wonder how that corner entry will be used if you have another one right before that. So that's kind of, it seems to me like the entry that less often will be used. So that's why I asked in terms of the traffic and the valet, if that doesn't become the big main entry with the big glass area, everything is sort of saying that I am the entry, yet the real entry might remain the one on Maple Street. So that's kind of a bit unclear for me, that in reality, if that ever will be the primary one. The second thing is, I think the bulkhead, the way the waves kind of make their way in the other direction other than the horizontal, I'm not sure if it helps making the building kind of lighter, where if for example the bulkhead remains a simple sort of big kind of a block, as if you put it on top of these waves, it might make the waves stronger, or it's something that I might just draw on the section. If, for example, there is a section, it would be hard to see, but instead of making the bulkhead so volumetric, if this became sort of thinner at the edge, and then you did something as a second layer, so pull the big parapet back. Actually, it might
have 2 layers.
So you have a very thin piece on top. It will make these waves much better, I think, in terms of their lightness. And then the last comment is that it seems like you have 2 rows of solar panels. One of them is on the north-south side facing, or I think they both should be on the north side facing south. That's minor, no? Because one of them is behind the parapet. Oh, you're trying to put them closer to the source of the...
No, it's not like that.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever used the solar panel. in your
I
project.
have.
You have? Okay. First one, which is on the north side, is facing south. But the one on the south, it's in a different angle, also facing south. The face of the panel.
Yeah, it's behind the parapet.
Behind the parapet, yeah. But it's elevated. Is there a section there?
No, I don't
Okay,
see
I
it
can
in the
go
section.
up there. I'll show you.
Sure,
Yeah,
it's not.
there is a
I mean,
section.
I'm
There
sure.
is a section.
Yeah, it's,
But again, what he's talking about, I think, is the shadow casting.
as long as it's not in the shadow of the parapet,
No,
that should be
it's the
fine.
panel is right here, and it's studied. The shadow will not hit that.
Okay, that's all. I mean,
Yeah.
in this drawing, it seems
Okay.
kind of close to the parapet. That's minor issue. Yeah, and the bulkhead issue, I just brought it up to see what the panel might think about it or not.
Okay, we can talk about the bulkhead, and then let me just go over a couple of my comments. First of all, I think it's a very nice, amazing design, and I'm so happy to see something like this other than what other banquet halls within city do try to propose and come up. So I think I'm very glad to see this. I really appreciate modern architecture, the simplicity of the detailing, and just a simple solution for us. I think it's been a great approach to some of these commonly problems that we see as more of a square box building. I do agree, Mr. Zerf, that the front, I'm afraid, and that's more of your call and your client's call, of eliminating a section to incorporate a new entrance, whereas your original entrance still is as viable, as important as it is, even though the corner has been kind of carved away and created. So looking back at the history of the facility, people automatically will start using the maple entrance. So I think, for me, what I would suggest, and that's something that, again, you guys can look into, make the maple entrance less important, so that people would automatically will start coming in from the front and main entrance. That's what my approach would have been. But I think right now both entrances at the same height, same scale of the doors, they become pretty much the same kind of a, and so by eliminating a banquet hall facility and to create a lobby, I think that would, but again, it's so nicely done that becomes more of an internal function that your clients need to make a decision on. One thing, first of all, the bulkhead, I really don't mind the way that it's done, because I see it as positive, negative of the shadow casting, and if the shadow, the way it's interpreted on the rendering, the carve out is the void of the casting of a shadow. What I would have suggested, I would have gone a step further, and rather than keeping the top horizontal piece, I would have continued the wave over this and created an volumetric element of this waves so rather than having the entire building be cut at one level, it would start creating, maybe the skin would start peeling up on the roof, and so you start playing with that elements there. Rather than keeping everything vertically, I would have kept that. But that's a design approach. I think this is a valid approach. I think it's working fine. One quick observation, the entrances that you have, I'm assuming that the heights have been designed and prepared based on the panel heights of a 4 foot, 8 foot plus the whatever. But then when you come over here, you have this piece that it's right over. So the proportions of this, it's different. So in modern architecture, in contemporary architecture, details always make or break the entire project. The other thing is, if this whole panel is being cut out and the entire glass is going to be placed on, you're putting a panel over that. So the entire structure of that panel needs to somehow get attached either to the glass, or you have supports behind it and so forth. So this needs to be somehow designed. And it's not really going to be a glass that is going to support a panel. It's going to have a structure, and how that structure appears here and so forth. So those are the things that I would recommend looking into and making sure that what it's been proposed in the structure that is needed to support the panels would work. And the two last comments, I agree. I think just looking at the building itself is great, but then I think you do have the parking, the block, and all of that I think if it's left behind and all the money and effort is being placed on the building, I think the backdrop there should be as supportive as the proposed project. And the last thing is, some of these doors and the staircases and windows and everything, they're being left as is. So what I would recommend is either propose a color change or some sort of an upgrade to them to kind of work with what your new panels are and how those panels going to work and support that. So on paper it looks great, but in actuality it's going to become an issue there that I think it needs to definitely be addressed. But other than that, I think it's fine. So and none of these are conditions, so I think it's more of consideration. But if you guys want to talk about the top
May I
piece,
suggest, now that you're talking, maybe as a suggestion, maybe that entrance, it's trying to be the primary entrance, the one on Central. Maybe as a suggestion, I don't know if you had looking into it, close that door and then continue the glass towards Maple and make the corner and push the wave, and then put the entrance on Maple, and then you have
then you're going to have
less-
two entrances.
No, no,
Yeah.
well, that one goes, there's a couple of halls. I mean, if you have two events, people coming to this hall, then you won't force them in. Maybe that's the way to look at it. And then also you have the ramp coming down, the handicap ramp, pedestrian.
These are.
I mean, it's
we're not
suggest-
asking questions.
May I address some of the concerns, especially the top portion that,
These are just let us finish it, and then if we have, and then so let's just finish this. So I need to move.
But it is trying, forcing people to come to the corner there as an entrance.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't
Maybe-
know.
I think it's more a functional consideration of how the internal work is going to be. I mean, the other option is to leave the front entry and Central and create a secondary exit and remodel that section and move that banquet section to the back where the main entrance is right now off of Maple. So you still don't lose that. But that's more internal. But my quick comment on the lighting, I think that's one of the important things that we never discussed. I like the lighting. I like the concept of the lighting. I hate the concept of changing colors because I don't want it to look like a strip, one of these casinos along, Vegas Strip. So I think the blue color is fine. I agree. I think we should put a limitation on the brightness, or if however we can determine that. But I don't think it needs to be so bright. I think the blue color is going to be so effective that even the least amount of projection of that light is going to give that effect.
A little will go a long way.
A little will go a long
Well,
way.
if we decide decide with one color, one light color,
Right.
then we have to decide the background color too.
Well, the
have
background
to
color,
find
I
out
think,
what it's gonna be.
I think
Light.
I think it's just going to be so dark that I don't think the background color is
During
going to
the
be
day?
effective. During the day, I think a simple
Mostly
color
a shadow.
it'll be mostly a shadow. So even a gray or something that I don't know, they can determine that. So but I think the lighting should be one color and controlled light rather than Do we want to hear the architect's suggestion on the top, or are you?
If he likes.
Would you like to?
on the top parapet panel, I can explain it two ways. First of all, it's a design decision, and it's my aesthetics to have the proportion of the top and to counterwave the horizontality on the vertical way. It has its own architectural philosophy, which is in my mind, and I cannot explain that. Second, it's a technical. You can't reduce that proportion. If you look at the photographs, there is a column head, which basically becomes, it curves out. This is the panel. This is the column head. Becomes part of the parapet. You can't make it shallow because that portion becomes exposed. Then you have to play with this, then you have to play with this, so it becomes ugly. We studied that, So the proportion itself is sort of dictated by what's in there, as well as the locations of the existing doors. But I do agree, it's a good comment. I think what we are going to do, which wasn't shown there, the doors would have a panel, the same metal panel, same color, the existing doors, and we will treat the windows. And as we've been talking about the lighting, and I said from the beginning that the would be the west side and the south side will not get any lighting. The lighting, majority of the light, the easy thing with this LED lighting, you can control it the level, and it could be dimmed down, to the certain degree that you want it to. And it also could play up and down very slightly. We don't want to make this look like a Christmas tree or anything like that. We want to have this light to help the building design, not to compete with it. And believe me, we're very, very careful with that. Because it's something that I understand where you're coming from, and it's in a design stage, but we're very careful with that.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Everything was a consideration. There's no condition, so
I don't know if that's true.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think
up to you.
Mr. Garagos' suggestion to treat that mid-wall between the parking and the driveway,
Yeah, which is-
we will go ahead and apply probably steel trowel stucco, and then painted the color, metal panel color, so it will come as closest to that.
okay. Very good.
Because using a metal panel, you never know,
Yeah, no,
somebody
I
may
wouldn't
hit
want
it or spray on it, and they will
No,
have a
yeah,
problem.
I wouldn't- I
I think
wouldn't-
latex
Then-
paint over that will
Yeah.
That's
justify
fine.
itself.
Thank you.
With the score lines, of
That's
course.
fine. Let that be a consideration. I mean, condition. Sorry.
Let me make a motion. I'll make a
If I may ask a question or propose something, because I know you're struggling a little bit with the lighting levels, and maybe this is also a question to the architect. The lead system, because I know that the architect is familiar with the lead rating system, and many of you are as well, and the architect has made a substantial effort for this building to be sustainable. The lead system does have some foot candle requirement. This is something you could get points for if you were applying for a lead rating, to control the lighting levels on exterior buildings. And there's a foot candle number that I did have memorized last week, but don't remember it right now. Perhaps, and again, I'm not exactly sure if that foot candle level would necessarily meet with the goal of the design. So perhaps we can have that as a consideration, that the lighting level
That would-
match the lead foot candle recommendation.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to consolidate some of the issues we talked about. So
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve with, and the only conditions I'm thinking of is that we would have him plaster that wall in the parking lot. And actually, I would do the walls that are, the block portions that are on Maple Street between the wrought iron. So that also would be stuccoed and painted. There's masonry portions to the fence wall that's on the parking lot side. In addition to the wall that is between the building and the parking lot, that those would all be skinned and plastered and painted. The other item was that the windows were going to be covered, or you would replace the windows? You do the panel over the window? Okay. That the perforating should cover over the existing windows. And he said they intended to do it, but I just wanted to clarify, because it's not on the section, that the undulations, the bottom portion of the undulations, have the perforated panel also. The below portion also has the perforation metal. It's not on the section, so I just want to clarify.
I have one question. The frosted glass, can I ask? The frosted glass, it has does it have a color tint?
It's green.
Green? Okay, just make sure because it shows green.
Board Member Garagos,
Thanks.
I'd like some clarification. I did note regarding plastering that block wall, which is located between the driveway and the parking lot on the west side. I'm not clear on which other walls you were referring to.
There's masonry portions below the wrought iron on
Okay,
Maple. Or
so,
on, this is Maple, yeah. On the parking lot side. That's Maple, right? That's, yeah. The half wall below the wrought iron would also be stuccoed and painted matte.
All the site masonry walls will be.
okay.
Yeah, that's,
To blend it in.
So including all site masonry walls. And lighting level to match the LEED 1-foot candle recommendation. We've noted that. And you mentioned perforating the existing, or providing a perforated metal sheet panel over the existing windows
And if the doors
Throughout.
would also, doors also.
and doors. And there was one last comment you mentioned regarding the
On
sheet
the
panel.
undulations.
Uh-huh.
That the bottom of the undulation has the perforated panel also.
Okay.
And one last thing, the landscaping that is on the street side of the parking lot would also be included in the upgraded landscaping. The plants are on that side street also, or on Maple. That gets included in the landscaping, new landscaping.
Okay. Do you have a second?
If I could just read back, because I think there were a few things added, so forgive me for the redundancy. And what we've heard is that all of these are considerations with the exception of stuccoing the CMU walls. Is that correct?
No, I was clarifying as a condition because we all agreed to it. I was just codifying that the conditions were, we were stuccoing all the site walls and painting them, that the landscaping was going to also be included that's on Maple, that's a
Okay.
condition.
That's a condition.
That the windows are covered with perforations along with the doors, that's a condition. And I don't know what else we missed.
Okay, let me just read back what we've heard, and correct me if you don't want these to be included. Consider reducing the apparent importance of the entry on Maple to enhance the relative importance of the corner entry. Consider the height of the Maple entry to correspond to the panel module. Existing stairs and doors, and originally you had requested them to be painted, and then the architect chimed in that they would clad them with metal panel. I'm wondering if you'd so that the architect will have that flexibility as they move through the process, if it would be acceptable to either condition or have that listed as a consideration, painted or clad with metal
Well,
panel.
he's saying they're going to clad it, so I'd rather clad it.
Okay, so it's no longer painted, it's clad with perforated metal panel and perforated panel over the existing windows. That's a condition.
Yes.
Blue color is fine. Variation in color should be excluded. And there should be a limitation on brightness. Consider the foot candle recommendation in the LEED system. And the brightness portion is also, all of that is a consideration rather than a condition. Is that correct? Steel trowel stucco at parking lot and masonry portion on parking lot side. And then for clarification, all site CMU walls to be steel troweled plaster. And that's a condition. Perforated panel to be included at the bottom of the horizontal perforated panels. And that's a condition. Landscaping on the street side of the parking lot to be included in the landscape plan, and that's a condition. Okay, thank you very much.
nicely done.
Second.
Yeah, great.
Okay, that was a motion by Board Member Garagos and a second by Board Member Zarifian. That would be approved with conditions. Board Member Garagos?
Yes.
Board Member Zarifian?
Yes.
Board Member Beladian?
Yes.
Board Member Carter?
Yes.
Chairperson Malikian?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Next, are we ready?
Encinal. Letters.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The next case before you is 2-PDR-2008-8083-A, which is located at 3325 Ensel Avenue. The zoning of this property is R1 residential, a low-density residential. This project is exempt from CEQA. This is the first time submittal for the board's review. The project description is to construct a new 2,051 square foot, two-story single-family residence with a new 451 square foot attached garage. The existing property is approximately 6,620 square feet. Currently, it is vacant and is irregular in shape. The previous single-family residence on site was 1,140 square feet with an attached garage and was demolished with the proper permits back in September 16, 2008. The property gently slopes upwards from Encinal towards the rear. Onto site planning, the street front setback pattern of the neighborhood is staggered with an average front setback of 34 feet. The proposed new two-story home will be generally situated at the center of the lot and will follow the pattern of the neighborhood and with a street front setback of 25 feet. On the mass and scale, the proposed project is once again with a two-story design. It has a stepped second-story level providing three-dimensional appearance at the south, east, and north elevations. The project proposes a mixture of roof forms, which include hipped and Dutch gable roof forms. Originally, the proposed single-family residence was designed with a gabled roof on the east elevation, and a consideration has been applied with a large hip roof. However, staff believes further attention is necessary for the east elevation and the north elevation. On to architectural style, as indicated on the architectural statement, the project reflects an influence of ranch-style home. The building will be clad with a combination of stucco, vertical rough-sawn siding, and red brick veneer. Wooden double single-hung windows are proposed throughout the home with rough-sawn sidings as surrounds. Staff recommends an alternative design to be explored. A redesign with a consistent roof style with a lower appearance should be investigated to further reduce the mass of the home. Staff's recommendation is for this project to be returned for redesign. The applicant has taken some consideration of staff's preliminary comments. However, it is the opinion of the planning department that the design does not fully and doesn't appropriately address the intent of the design guidelines and doesn't appear appropriate for the immediate neighborhood. Therefore, the planning department recommends a project for redesign, a return for redesign with the following conditions. Condition number 1, submit a design with a two-story house with a pitch and roof design that reduces the visual mass from all elevations. Submit details showing relationship of the windows and doors to the walls and windows and doors with the trim surrounds. Submit a door, which includes the garage and front door, and trim molding materials. The materials need to be consistent with the selected architectural style. Vinyl window material will not be accepted. As a consideration, a fixed window between a pair of double-hung windows should be implemented on the garage along the north elevation from Encinal. And the last consideration is a landscaping technique that includes the utilization of drought-tolerant plants is encouraged. This concludes the presentation. The applicant and the homeowner are in the audience. I'll be available for further questions.
I have a question. We're missing the matrix for the average homes, and do you have that? Has it submitted?
I have a file right in front of me.
Should be part of the packet that we
Yeah, but page 2, they have the one that, they have this other.
It should be in the staff report also as well.
We don't have the one that the average sizes per. Wasn't that supposed to be part of the?
It is, but I mean, they did
There's a digest.
breakdown.
I need to. Let me see if they have
They
it.
did averages.
Well,
It's not
take
part of
one. Okay, let's go ahead and. Is it Rod Chairman?
Good evening. My name is Rod Perryman. I'm a designer as well as a general contractor. My address 2740 East Cameron, West Covina. I'd like to speak on the project, if I might. May I approach the board?
Yes.
As the staff mentioned, we have a very unusual lot. All of the lots in that area are the same. We have some real setback problems. The owner was interested in getting a certain footage of the property. As the staff report indicates, we have a lot of homes built in the 40s and 50s and 60s. I would guess that 80% of them have been remodeled in the last 15 or 20 years, so none of them look to be 40 or 50 years old. We have about 3 homes in a 500-foot radius that are 2-story. Started working on this project in March of '06. We had a house on the lot that was non-conforming. It was built on the property line that looked terrible. The owners wanted to do something better. It took us a year and a half to get a demo permit. I worked with Chris Baxter for 2 years on the project, going with all the comments that he had, and I came up with Dutch gable roofs and so on and so forth. In January of this year, Joe called me and said, I would like you to meet with Stephanie Reich and go over your project. I said, fine. Dennis had mentioned, or Chris had mentioned in January that we were ready to build our stick house and so forth. So meeting with Stephanie, I find out that everything we'd done in 2 years was not acceptable. So we went through. She indicated she didn't like the roof lines. As we all know, if we have a Dutch gable roof, it makes sense to go with the gable in other areas. She didn't like that, so we went to hip roofs. To me, this looks like a pyramid. That's why we have a 2-story configuration there. So I feel like we've complied with one planner, and if I'm turned down today, I'd like to get a planner that's going to work with me and stay with me during that period, because there's a lot of work involved. So let's see, I think we have a gentleman that's concerned about the height of our building looking onto his property to the rear. He's about 4 to 5 feet higher than we are, so I'm concerned about him looking back at us. I have a picture of the back of his home. He has 2 small bathroom windows looking at the back of the house. We have 2 people on either side. Staff recommended we take out the windows on the 2nd floor, so we've done that. So I'll be glad to answer any other questions.
Thank you.
Is it Rick Loxon?
Good evening, gentlemen. Rich Loxon. I live at 3322. I'm the property directly behind. I've lived there for 35 years and watched the neighborhood. I know most of the houses pretty well. Going through this paperwork I got off the net here from the city's website, a lot of discrepancies in the numbers and things like that. The previous property was not 1,140 square feet or whatever it says. That could have been with the garage. The original house was brought up in 36 from the Olympic site. It was a cracker box, just practically nothing house. It almost fell down, but that's, it was a tiny house. My house measures on the outside 800 square feet. Take away the walls, you got less than that. This house is more than 3 times the size of my house. Okay, the other thing is, on the setback business, the drawing up there shows my house way away from the property line. The rear corner, the southwest corner of my property, my house sits approximately 3 foot off the property line. My house is parallel to the street in front and parallel to the street in back, which is, property lines are on the angle of the parallelogram. Like I said, the house, it's a beautiful rendering, it's a beautiful, house and everything, but not for this little neighborhood. Most every house there, we've got 4 abortion 2 stories in the neighborhood, one of which the city let get built, and it's actually in the street. The other, there's a split level on the north or southeast corner of New York and Altura. It doesn't look like it because of the way it's landscaped. It's been there since it's one of the early houses from the 40s. Original house on the property date to the 30s that I know of for sure. Mine was built in 47. There was a lot of mishmash, and we were county area and all that kind of stuff. a two-story house is pretty good. The only thing I can see positive about it is block the obnoxious city street light, cut down some of the freeway noise. I was trying to find I cut this out of a plan that I have on my property that shows where my house sits in relation to the property line, and it's 3 foot right there. So we're extremely close to them, what they propose. Let's see. They're dumping a pool right in the backyard. Of course, personally, I think anybody that builds a pool today is crazy. All the money for water and everything else. Lighting, that was one thing. I hope they don't have any lights that are going to be shining up the back of the property. And I don't care if they look in my yard when I'm dancing in the bedroom in my underwear. That's fine and dandy with me. But, the house is just too big. Cut off the second floor. I see the second floor, that 600 square foot of room, for me to buy 3 bedrooms or a party room that's going to have constant use. We've got a guy next door to me that's got a nice remodel job, and he totally fixed up his garage with ceramic tile floor and the whole 9 yards. They dump all the kids there, and almost every weekend there's a party. The guy below him, they have parties occasionally. We don't really hear them. If they put 400, 600 square feet of second floor and a swimming pool, you can be guaranteed it's going to be party city out there. So take the second floor off, build a house. They could stretch the house out wider, get closer to the setbacks. Get a variance, move it down to the front a little bit because of the funny angles we got. That garage, hey, get a variance and push that garage down a couple of feet, just to kind of, gain some floor square for the house.
What was your address?
3322. I'm the one directly behind.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Is it Jim Kingsley?
My name's Jim Kingsley. I'm at 3333 Encinal. I'm on the west side of this property. And I'm anxious to see a new home built. I bought my property in 1976. 1989, I did the same thing that Mr. Cook's doing here. So this will be a good thing for the neighborhood at the end of the day. However, the size of this building, in my opinion, is too much for the neighborhood. It's particularly on my side of the building. I went over to the property, stood on top of a ladder, and this thing's going to tower over my house on that side. There's no picture here of where my house sits in relation to the west side, but there's not nearly as much room over there as appears on that sketch up there. My patio, my kitchen, my dining room, and my other patio, I have 2 patios on the side of my house, will be in the direct line of that. If you're standing at on the balcony that's out the back of this building, I mean, I'll be shaking hands with people when they do this. I have a little concern about the 10-foot easement on my side. It looks to me like it's going to be a parking area at the end of the day. There's several places in our neighborhood where people have put their gigantic RV homes there and stored them. So I don't ever want to see that strip of land, if it's approved as is, become a parking lot for storage of an RV vehicle. I also have a little concern now that I'm looking more at the plans. It appears to be a flat floor plan on the house. My house, when I built it, is stepped. Because of the slope of the property, I probably have, 3.5 feet between the front of the garage and the back of my building. And I think if this thing is built on a flat plane, I'm going to be digging a hole in the ground there to accommodate it. However, if it's built in a stepped fashion, like my house was a little bit, then I think the back's going to look even more monstrous than it looks today. My recommendation, which I had sent in, was to remove the second floor. That takes care of the mass of the building. It'll provide more light into my house. The floor plan on my side could be extended to where the easement is on that side of the property to regain some of the land or the floor space that's lost up top. That's about all I have to say. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Pearman, do you have anything to add?
Just looking at the photograph here on the property to the back, it appears we have two houses on one lot there. So I guess that's why he's within 3 feet of the property. As we all know, that's not normally acceptable. As I mentioned before, we don't have any windows on the west or east side. Also, our lot coverage is right at 35%, so it's easy to say lob off the second floor, but there's nowhere to pick up additional footage.
Is it 35 or 31?
Well, it's right there where we might get another couple hundred feet, but it's, with a lot like it is, it's pretty hard to do.
The plans are not really drawn with all the accurate information on it. Can you give me a little bit of an understanding how much slope we have from front to back?
I would agree with Jim that we do probably have 2.5 foot of fall, but with our garage there, we can take up a good portion of it there. We may have to build the front up a foot or so to make it a level area. So I don't see that we're going to be 2 or 3 feet higher in the back than we would normally be.
Okay. Thank you. Public session is closed. Mr. Carter?
Yes, if I may just say, just as a sort of a preamble, this board, this is Design Review Board, is always, ever since I've been here, extremely sensitive, and myself sort of hypersensitive to the timeline of applicants, because it's a constant source of antagonism for the public that's unaware of the timeline and how a project comes to design review. But I just have to state for the record that despite whatever has preceded getting to this board, these members get these plans 6 to 8 days, the Friday before the session. We're duty-bound to review them and do a site drive-by, and then we hear the presentations here when we're continuing to study them from staff and from the applicant. So I just want to make it clear that we are very sensitive to people's timelines of their projects. It's their lives, it's their money, but when it comes here, all of that has to stop for a moment as we review the plan. So we have great sympathy and empathy. That's not a word that's too popular now, but we do have empathy with that timeline. I just wanted to state that. Now, having said that, these properties, when you do the drive-by, and we've had other projects in the area, I am, and I think we are, familiar with these lots. And they're I won't call them tortured lots. We have tortured lots in this city. These are not them. But they are modest, and they do present certain, I won't say problems, I'll say challenges, as the architect contractor obviously knows. And the people that live in the immediate area are keenly aware of them because they have had to deal with them, and they've dealt with them in their own ways over the years. So that's what we are presented with when we see this plan. So I note, because we're talking about first and second stories, that staff, with their suggestion that it be sent back for redesign, has actually embraced a 2-story home here. So that as a marker, I think, is something in the applicant's favor if he as he approaches a 2-story house. But I think staff has been sensitive to the fact that there is sensitivity to adjoining properties, and that they'd like to see a revised plan. And with that, I'm going to hand it off as we start to talk about that revised plan.
What strikes me about it is that when you first look at it, it looks like it's an addition, like they're adding the second floor.
That's exactly right.
Which is, it took me a second to realize it's actually a new house. So consequently, at the first moment, I was thinking, well, let's figure out another way to do that second floor. How could we do that differently? Then realizing it was a brand new house, I'm thinking, That's interesting. We can do all,
the same way.
we do lots of things differently. I absolutely feel for the time you've spent having processed stuff through many cities, and there's nothing pleasurable about that. But there has to be a realization that if there isn't a communication on it, that it's not going to proceed. And I think a lot of times when you go into a meeting like that and you take out from that meeting only little tidbits like let's change the roof form or something like that, and then you come back with that revision, you haven't actually moved the project forward very much. Because I think, and I don't know the history of this too much, and I mean, I don't necessarily want to know the history, but I think I could probably guess that the issues about the massing were part of the early discussions. And it doesn't look like they were really addressed, other than the fact of sort of changing roof form. So I'm not sticking up for staff, but I think that could be an issue why it has taken so long. In looking at the plan, at the site plan, even though it's a parallelogram, if you chopped off the angles on the end, this is a little over a 50-foot wide lot, which there's a million floor plans for doing a two-story on a 50-foot wide lot. So there's nothing really complicated about this site, and in some ways, because it is a parallelogram, your garage gets to tuck into the front a little bit more than you would on a square lot. So there's actually positives about having a parallelogram. In general, though, this is a new structure, and you could be looking at a whole series of examples of properties that handle the massing in a way that could do that, and especially, with that kind of freedom. Even if you wanted to hold with what you had on the floor plan, you could take the kind of footage you have in the game room and just move it much more to the front, so it worked, more centered on the massing of the building. I personally don't have a problem with two stories. I think it's unrealistic to assume people are going to tear down an 800-square-foot house and build an 800-square-foot house. I don't think that's realistic to propose to anybody. So I don't have a problem with the size of the structure, and I think I'm fairly consistent on that. It's not the numbers, it's what you do with the footage that's there. There's nothing about a 2,000-square-foot house that should be onerous on a neighbor and should be hard for you to accomplish. So I'm in agreement. I think it's unfortunate that it's taken this long, but you need to look at how the three dimensions work and how the massings work. And the idea about the balcony in back, I think, could be an issue, because I know we're limited in terms of privacy issues, but I know a balcony of that size can trigger a review by this board. So I don't know. Okay.
Well, I feel your frustration. You guys, Mr. Giragos, Mr. Carter said what I was going to tell you. In addition to that, taking into consideration this is a brand new project, I thought, like you, that this was an addition, and I was trying, like previous meetings, we tried to fix and get it with the condition approval. But I think there is thousands, millions of examples of projects similar that you could research to come up. I think the problem is, like Mr. Giragos said, that you have to break it, move the second floor. I don't have a problem with the second floor, nor the size. I mean, you could play with it, but I think the problem is it's the envelope by itself, the way you executed the design. I think it's not the best execution architecturally. And that's why I really recommend you to spend some time researching architectural books with similar size. There's so many books. You go to the Borders, you have those ready-made plans that, I don't know, what do you call those books? They have those sample plans. I mean, you could grab those. I mean, you could see it.
We don't encourage those.
I don't encourage. I hate them. But for you, if it helps you, I think you need to buy those books and try to break it down. The roof. I think the roof is the problem. You concentrated the whole second floor on one side, and the building is kind of floating this way. You need to spread it out. I mean, let me finish. You need to spread it out to make it a little bit more horizontal and make it more the body more concentrated, balanced. Once you do that, I think the roof design will follow with it automatically by introducing little smaller balconies and all that will help you a lot. Articulation, you cannot just drop the floor plan, second floor on one corner and then try to solve, I need to cover this roof with the pitch 412, whatever pitch you're using. It's not working that way. You need to really study the floor plans, the elevations, the roof designs, and all that. I think you need to do some research. I'm sorry for your frustration again. I think you need to, revisit the design, in my opinion. That's about it.
No, I'll make it very short. I think actually the plan looks very, very clean, very nice plan. I think I agree with pulling the two-story up front, and I like to say why, what it might do to help you with the basic massing. I think what happens in the way it's been rendered or designed at this point is that it's hard to tell which part of the house is primary and what's built around it. And that second story kind of pushed back might be part of the problem because that's why maybe it looks like an addition. I think with the same plan, probably you could achieve a better massing and the roofs somehow maybe just by pulling the mass of the two-story forward, you might find other ways of resolving the roofs. The problem is that the roofs don't follow the same simplicity of the plan. I think they become complicated and they change as you go around the house. It probably changes to the point that each side kind of represents a different house. So I would think that simplifying the massing would be a key to, and the roof forms would be a key to make this a more humble sort of house that fits within the neighborhood. And I would like to stress also the window types seem like they change. Also, I would try to unify them more if I'm sure it's possible. I think you have heard so many people say so many things, but I think think simple would be my biggest recommendation for the house.
Where do I start? Whenever a project is being proposed that it's going to be the largest house in the block, probably the only two-story in the block, looking at the average lot, you're right on the average lot size. And the FAR is the largest FAR within the entire block. You always have the challenge to overcome. And unfortunately, you have gone through a very long process of planning and the staff. But I think the challenge it becomes your burden to design a building that will be consistent with the design guidelines and be at a level that we would review and approve. Mr. Garagos kind of mentioned that, and I felt exactly the same way. When I looked at the project, it looked more like an addition than a brand-new building. I know there are certain needs that your client has, and I think the floor plan, the ground plan, I think is very simple. I think it's definitely manageable. But I think once you start looking at massing and how the second floor is being added on, I think that's where the whole thing falls apart. I think the care and effort that has gone through preparing the plans, to me, I think it's the same level as you look at the overall picture of how the building has been designed. Placing the windows on the rear elevation off-center, not lined with each other, knowing that you are going to be using a shear wall, having it consistent. So you just nonchalantly place that without referencing the roof ridge line. The second floor front and the back roofs are completely different, how they're being, you have the front elevation, you have this brick wainscoting that as you turn to the right side, you're calling it a right side, the wood siding goes all the way down, and those details fall apart. Windows that are being proposed that are completely different in each elevation. You're creating this very, very massive roof as you're looking at from the front, the extension of the roof hitting the second floor. All of these combine, the balcony, how it's being placed in the back, and the columns, where they fall, you're not even showing it on the rear elevation, where the columns are being placed. Railings, typical Home Depot railings. So it's just, I can go ahead and start pinpointing all of these items, but I think overall, I think as a brand new building, ground up building, I think a lot of things have to be cleared before I'm not going to speak for my colleagues to get my approval. The grade change, the massing, the detailing, the architectural style, which that's the only thing that I can kind of agree on, that it fits within the neighborhood. But other than that, everything else fails for me. Another recommendation, I think it would be wise this is for the public, if you are going through this process and the staff is literally recommending for return for redesign, it would be extremely, extremely difficult for us to change our decision and go against what staff is recommending, especially when something is very obvious. Recommendation also is to go back and look at certain projects that we have approved. We have projects that we haven't even opened up to public. We just see it, we just put it on the we make a motion and we approve that. So being at that level, we want to shoot every project that we see, we want to approve it and review it at that level and be able to come in, look at it, this is a no-brainer, and we'll go ahead and approve it. It is a shame, it is a ground-up building, it is a shame that the least amount of care has gone into preparing the plans and the detailing and the massing and the studying of the neighbors, how it fits within. Again, you are proposing a two-story building. You are proposing the largest building within the area with having the same lot size. So I think the burden is in your shoulder to prove to us that this project, when we approve it, it's going to be a unique project that I can guarantee you, once we prove this, there's going to be many other ones coming. So we want to set an example so that if we are going to approve a two-story, and that's a big if, let it be an exemplary project so that everyone else, when they look at it, they can follow a certain design and certain design guidelines. If they do not follow the city guidelines, and they would look at yours. So having said that, then anyone wants to set a motion or
make the move.
Kind of a critical issue.
Please.
Sure. Do you want me to set the time for?
That's fine.
I appreciate your comments, and I'll take them to heart. And one thing, in my defense, we have 2 oak trees on either side. The one where the house looks like this, we have 2 oak trees from the neighbor that we have to contend with, and that's why we've done what we've done there.
And my answer to you is you should go back and look at some of the files, and we had, past 10 years, I've seen many of the same similar projects, and we have approved it hands down. So I
With
think,
that in mind, we'll be going to a one-story.
well, you don't necessarily have to, but it would be very difficult to get a 2-story with having the oak tree and the design that you're looking for.
So like I say, we have oak trees on both sides that are projecting under our property. Thank you.
Motion?
Second.
I can't.
Yeah. No, I'll make a motion.
Motion,
Oh,
I second.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can I get a
return for
clarification?
Yeah, return for redesign with the considerations, comments we've made.
Okay, I did hear some comments from Zarifian is to unify the windows from all types, from all elevations. Should we add that to as a condition?
Yeah.
The vertical sidings going down the front facade, maybe we should make that a condition to reconsider maybe
I
siding
think rather
materials.
than getting into every detail, I think they need to go back and look at the entire general detailing of the project and be consistent. I think that would be a better, rather than go one by one, because I can go for 20 minutes telling you everything that I see wrong with
Let me
this.
just say one thing, though. Did this go to Anne Marie?
Yes, there's a letter at the end.
Stephanie, let me ask you just before I think you're going to comment. The conditions that staff has here in our motion, I think it needs a page 1 rewrite also, but is it helpful to have these conditions in the motion, or is redesign sufficient?
Well, I'm really glad that you asked that, because as we continue to work with the applicant to come back, we're assuming that the applicant will want to come back before you at some point. It's very important for us to understand what you're recommending, because most of the time it's similar to what we're recommending, but not all the time. So if we're very clear on what you're recommending, we can help the applicant more to achieve what you're hoping for. So if I may, let me read what we have here and see if that's acceptable, and augment that with what we've also heard, because there were some conflicting statements that we'd like to clarify. Submit a design of a 2-story house with a pitch and a roof design that reduces the visual mass from all elevations. No. Okay, so you don't want to include that. Submit details.
I'm not fully 100% convinced to have a 2-story. 2-story is a solution, but if they are going with the 2-story, forget the roof. It just needs to be designed,
Okay, so if we were to say
to convince
that
me that the 2-story.
if a 2-story project is proposed, a roof design that minimizes the massing and fits into the neighborhood, which is predominantly 1-story, should be proposed.
That's nice.
Okay. Let's see, and the rest are actually very detail-oriented. So let me take a stab at something that's general yet specific. What we heard from the board is that that we did hear that the style that was chosen could fit into the neighborhood, but that all of the details need to be consistent, quality, and reinforce that style. Would that be a fair statement? It's not, and we could add, it's not required to maintain this style. If this style does move forward, then all of the details need to be consistent. I think that we were very concerned, and the condition number 1, as we wrote it, maybe reflects the concern, the overriding concern of the roof design that we were discussing or analyzing, because what we noticed was similar to what you had noticed, that overall, the floor plan is fairly simple, but the roof design didn't match the simplicity of the floor plan. But we also heard that the placement and design of the second story is also problematic. So rather than recommending specific solutions for the roof design, perhaps a condition or consideration should be reconsider the two-story placement, the placement of the placement and configuration of the second story, and design a roof that provides a cohesive three-dimensional design for the property that fits in with the scale of the neighborhood.
That's fair.
Yes.
And then quality, details, and materials should reflect whatever style is chosen.
One last thing, I really need a better set of plans. I really want
Okay,
to see
so
detailed information about the slope of the lot, detailed information about what they're proposing to do along the east property or west property line or east property line. There's fencing proposed, they're not. Some numbers are not consistent, elevations are not drawn properly. So I need to get a much better set of plans that reflect all of these conditions.
okay, so rather than just stating plans should be complete and correct, we will list all the things that you've just mentioned, including the scope of work, the scope of improvements on the site, a consistency between plan and elevation.
It's going to be important. It's going to be very important.
And the important details that are carry out the design, such as the balcony, eave, and window details.
Maybe a section will help.
Section, everything that is needed for us to understand the design properly, and it needs to be documented. And I want to clarify this the condition that I'm putting in. I do not want anything left out for the planner to come out there and guess to see what your intent has been. I want to make sure that the drawings reflect what you're going to build out there. 6 months down the line, 7 months down the line, when you're ready for inspection, the planner goes out there. I want to make sure we have many examples that people have come in with minimal amount of information on the plans, gotten the plans approved. During the construction, they made their own decisions and their own considerations and other things where the planners have come back and had a lot of issues. So I want to make sure that what we're approving is consistent with what's going to get built.
And Stephanie, can I have a point of clarification? This board, several of us urged research of the, approaches to this. I'm sure this, Mr. Perryman is a professional. He probably knows construction from Lancaster to the Mexican border. But do you, in your department, do you have a bank of projects that have approached this? Is this are we encouraging something that actually exists?
Why don't we include as a condition or consideration to research similar designs and potentially propose a precedent or follow precedents of a similar nature for a similar site. We do have examples of other projects that the board has approved for the city of Glendale. We do have resources that we do show our
I'm confident if you have those resources, I don't need to make that a condition or anything. So just a clarification for me, it's there, and we would encourage the applicant.
We do have those resources. We are sometimes reluctant because very often, and I'm not saying this applicant said or did this, but sometimes applicants will come to us and say, tell us what we should do. And so
Right.
we're reluctant to point to anything specifically and say, here, do this, because it might not be appropriate. So in that case, we usually like to ask the applicant to find their own precedent that works for them that they could use as an example. One more point of clarification. On the second floor, as it's shown, we've heard a few things. We've heard from the board that there was a sort of agreement that the floor plan seemed to work fairly well, but that the placement of the second floor was not, the placement and configuration of the second floor was not right. We've heard that to simply plant it on top as an extrusion of a piece of the ground floor is not the correct approach. From Board Member Zarifian, there was a suggestion to potentially move it forward, which staff typically does not recommend, so we wanted to clarify that piece.
I think that comment that the staff as a blanket statement that doesn't recommend moving 2 stories forward, it all depends how the massing will or will not work.
Okay.
So
I have a problem with staff's comment like that on the record.
It's not like a prescription that once you have the 2-story back, it will be fine.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so I think that in one of the clarifications that I read previously, design the placement, size, and configuration of the second floor so that it provides an overall quality design and fits in with the neighborhood is really what you're getting at.
My comment was basically referring to the fact that when you look at the massing of the building, you realize what's primary as a volume that becomes the bigger volume that everything else kind of starts to make a reference that how it works or doesn't work with it. So it's a matter of achieving that kind of clarity in massing. That's
So what you're also suggesting is to look at the hierarchy of the separate forms of the massing and make sure they're appropriate for the design.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a better.
Okay, very good. We'll transcribe those into conditions and considerations.
One compliment that
Yes.
I have for Mr. Pearman is that his site plans they're one of the only ones that show the adjacent properties and also show what's a bedroom and what are the uses, which I have always asked, and that's although simply drawn, but it's a very good piece of information.
Okay, thank you for that.
Can I just make one suggestion you might try if you talk to forestry? There may be a branch or two on that one oak that could be modified so that you could do massing up towards the front. So.
Do you have a motion in a second?
That is the motion, and I think it's been
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry, who's second?
Roll call. Mr. Beladi.
River, she said.
Okay, so I have a motion by Board Member Garagos and a second by Baladian
Yes.
to
Return for reading.
return for redesign. I have roll call. Board Member Garagos,
Yes.
Board Member Zarifian,
Yes.
Board Member Carter,
Yes.
Board Member Baladian,
Yes.
and Chairperson Malakian.
Yes.
So you have a 5-0 vote for a return for redesign.
Staff would like to take a 5-minute recess.
Okay, we're up.
All right. Okay, Mr. Chair, members of the Design Review Board, the last case item before you today is case number 2-PDR-2009-018-A, located at 37 Roselawn Avenue. This case is a first-time submittal for final review. This project is located in the R1 floor area district ratio, District 2 zone. This project is exempt from CEQA. The proposed project is to add 694 square feet to an existing 1,682 square foot single-story residence. The total proposed habitable floor area will be 2,376 square feet. If I just may quickly orient the board on this project site, this is a corner lot on Broadview Drive and has frontage on Roselawn, and also has an existing channel wash located directly behind it. For the purposes of the zoning code, the code states that Broadview is technically the front setback, where the front setback would be measured, but the house is oriented off of Roselawn Avenue. So it faces Roselawn and continues a setback off of Roselawn Avenue, but technically Broadview is the front. If I can go over some of the site planning issues. An attached garage is located along the front facade with driveway access on Roselawn Avenue. The addition of the residence will be located in 3 different locations. Approximately 200 square feet will be added to the front facade as noted here, and the rest of the addition will be placed at the rear of the property adjacent to the channel wash. The applicant is proposing a 6-foot block wall along the front of Broadview that will shield the addition. Onto mass and scale, the overall roof design will change and will be split into 2 different roof systems as shown here on this front elevation. The new addition will actually increase the height approximately 2 feet taller than the existing roof line. The front entrance also has been modified to accommodate a large wooden door. The overall mass of the new front entry appears to be compatible to the existing residence. However, as an overall design and neighborhood context, it appears to be out of place. On to out of place in regards to what is the neighborhood? I can show you I have neighborhood photographs I can provide to you in a moment. On to the architectural detailing of this design. The architecture of this addition is compatible and appears to be consistent with the neighborhood. However, staff would recommend the applicant to use materials that closely resemble a ranch style or propose more native materials that are found within the Spar Heights neighborhood. Staff approves this project with 6 conditions, and those conditions are as follows. Condition number 1, reduce the height, mass, and scale of the addition at the southwest corner. And that would be this location that projects into the intersection right here. Condition number 2, reduce the massing of the front entrance and consider using a smaller front door. Condition number 3, relocate the chimney further along the south elevation to help reduce the massing. Condition number 4 is provide a new landscape plan to complement the new construction. Condition number 5, provide a native material such as river rock to complement the neighborhood. And the last condition is to provide a block frame installation with deep recess for all window openings, and to provide a window of a high quality material. And if the applicant has chosen to use muttons, for the muttons to be external. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Was there a 50% top line?
Not at
They
this
have a
moment.
3-foot setback, that's why. They have a 3-foot setback in the back.
Yes, they do. An existing 3-foot setback along
Right,
that
but they're
building.
totally redoing the roof?
Yes. They're completely.
And there's a lot of exterior walls that are changing, so it seems like it needs to have a 50%.
Okay, I can have that provided as an initial. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed the north side is done, and half the other, plus the whole roof, so.
Okay, I can have the applicant verify whether 50% of the existing residence will be demolished.
What kind of stone are those?
It's noted on the plan as a stone veneer finish, and
Do
I
you
can
have a
check.
material board?
Yes, I can check the material board.
The roof tiles, what type?
Asphalt shingle.
Oh, asphalt.
Asphalt shingles for the
roof tile.
Is the trellis structure on the back new or?
It is an existing trellis structure. It would be existing patio. It'll be modified to accommodate the new. Oh, there's the new front door.
That's the door?
That's the proposed door.
And that's the color?
Yes. Sorry.
What are we looking at for the colors?
I can ask the applicant to verify whether it will be a white or...
What are the windows? Is this some kind of mosaic treatment? What is?
No, it's a craftsman style grid.
Okay, so the colored windows.
Behind.
Yeah, it's an internal button. It's not an external.
Like tile, it's unbelievable. And this is exterior wall finish, fascia. Painted finish. We have some of the photos of these. Gabriel, all the record on what color they're going to be. The exposed.
An exposed rock. I'm not sure if that's going to be naturally or it's going to be trimmed painted that fascia color.
Can we
Perhaps-
double check?
Yeah, Mr. Valadian, I believe in the meetings with staff, the previous design, I believe, did have a fascia trim. I can clarify with the applicant.
So there's a trim or there's?
With the previous design, I believe, had a fascia trim, and then this was the color that it was going to be. But since subsequent meetings with staff, we moved it to have exposed rafter tails.
So they removed it, and then the color we're not sure yet.
Yes, that's correct. I'm not sure it's the color.
Okay, let's clarify that. And then the iron, is that actual drawn or it's going to be Home Depot? We have some material finish for the iron, the wood iron. Yeah, I know, but it's very closely
I'm not sure if that's
drawn. I mean,
yeah, that's
I don't know how they could fabricate.
I think we need to ask the architect for that.
Yeah.
Some photos, gentlemen. Okay.
Are you looking at a glancing angle? That's right.
Are we ready for the architect?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Mr. Vartan John Gozian?
Yeah, see this view?
Yeah.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mr. Chair, board members, planning staff. My name is Bartan Jangosian. My address is 1224 East Broadway, Suite 202, Glendale 91205. The project which was presented here, it's about less than 700 square foot addition. The purpose of the addition was to enlarge the living room and kitchen and a master bedroom. And we tried to stick with the existing character of the house. And about the staff report, which was mentioning about the height of the living room area roof, it was because of when we enlarged the kitchen and the dining room, we needed to provide new roof to characterize existing roof too. So the project itself is much less than requires floor area ratio, lot coverage, and landscaping is much more than again required landscaping. The lot itself is a very characteristic. It's a corner lot, and we deal here, the lot itself, it's a irregular shape, and behind of the property, we have a drainage channel, and we have to deal all that requirements. And if there is any other question, I'm here to answer you.
Did you ever do a 50% calc, how much you were changing of the existing?
Existing, actually, we keeping the most of the front elevation, but in the rear, it's almost totally changing, rear portion.
And the whole roof changes, right?
Yes, yeah.
The whole roof
No, well, over the
structure?
garage and other area is not changing.
Okay, but we'll make that a condition, so it's verified.
You had a question, Mr. Bolaño, for the architect?
Yes, I have a question. Do you have a cut sheet for the wrought iron fence, anything?
That wrought iron fence is existing one. We didn't specify any new one because when I work with the staff, they recommend me to do concrete block, split face concrete block wall covering that rear view.
Okay.
And rest is existing wrought iron fence.
Existing.
Existing, yes.
You're proposing marginal lights, which kind of give it a craftsman or that kind of feel, and then
Actually,
you're doing the concrete surround.
The owner like that windows, and be honestly, from outside we don't even see that things because it's between the two glasses. But from inside, it's giving some kind of characteristic, feeling. But
You'll definitely
maybe
see the marginal
from
lights
outside,
outside.
you don't see that elements even. It's going to look like a plain glass.
I don't know if that's true.
Well,
I mean, they're white. They're going to show. Like you see them all over. Like on the existing house has dividers in it.
well,
right?
when we do the project, we have to listen a little bit owners too. Yes, I mean.
Totally understand. No, I'm just saying. I'm only saying be consistent. That's all. You're using one style in the windows, and then you're doing a concrete surround, which seems.
Actually, we're keeping all the windows same character. We don't have variety of windows. All of them are the same character.
No. The surrounds, the concrete, the precast surround around the windows.
Okay.
Seems a little bit out of
To give
character.
some recess of the window, to look a little bit deeper. Actually, I have a detail over there. The windows are already 3-inch recessed, and plus we making cast that concrete, more.
But,
Last page. Last page.
but I do have a question. All the windows, while you... Sure?
Good.
All the windows you're using...
That's the existing.
This style, right?
Exactly. Yes, but the white color.
White color, okay.
Yes.
The whole house,
Yes.
the entire house.
Yes.
But you have this one window slider, whatever it is, it's not that type. I don't know if it's drawn wrong or...
That I
Wanna make
believe
sure.
that is in the rear elevation.
We can put a condition to make sure.
I believe it's coming from... Yes.
You need to speak. Mr. Jungle, city's not going to hear.
So you're going to change all the windows in the house except for that, you want to reuse that door?
Why not?
Well, I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
It's in a good shape. Well,
I mean, you're doing all this work. I mean, what's left to... It doesn't...
Do you have any comment about how the two roof forms seem to be dissimilar? You're creating a valley between the two roofs
Change it.
rather than bringing a roof over and attaching it to the other. Do you have any comment on that? Or?
actually, I did.
No, between the two, the large extension on the right-hand side and left-hand side, there's not a piece that's connecting the two roofs.
But we are not touching that elevation, so I have to deal with that elevations, actually. We have back and forth situation, so I have to deal with that one.
Right, but you could have roof on the left-hand side coming over onto the right-hand side. It would help tie the two together, right?
Yes.
Okay. You could. It would be possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
All right, thank you. Close the public session. Anyone wants to go first?
I don't know.
Do you want to go first? You don't want to go first?
I'll go.
Maybe I'll go ahead. Actually, at the first glance, I think the project looked kind of nice in terms of consistency and window types, and I think if maybe we should. I should start with the biggest issue that I think already been kind of mentioned. Mr. Geragos alluded to that. I think the biggest thing that I see is the way on the entry side that volume becomes a different one and doesn't quite become part of the existing house. It becomes kind of the new addition, and then the way the entry piece happens between these two, new and old, and doesn't kind of create this new house that you can tell there's an addition been made. I think that needs to somehow be able to integrate itself into a single structure. When you look at the entry side, this is basically the part that I think it becomes kind of three different things: the new addition, the old house, and the new entry. Kind of they come together, but they don't represent one building. Which I think then it wants to then ask the question if the roof is what really separates the two, which I think by the east side, the new addition side, if it becomes taller than the existing one, then that doesn't really help that condition. So I think there's something that if you look at the houses of the surrounding neighborhood, a lot of the eave lines are very simple and consistent, and that sort of simple thing helps the house be unified as one structure. I think if we go back to the staff comments, maybe the massing of the entrance or the height refers to that comment, actually, to reduce the height, because you can't reduce the height that much. It's about that simple difference that kind of becomes a junction between the two pieces. So I think a more regular eave height will help that unification. Then the other second one says about the massing of the front entrance. I think once the front entry eave actually follows the existing building line, which I think wants to resolve the other issue, the front entry will look more aligned with the structure. So the second issue will be resolved automatically. Then third comment is about the corner chimney. I don't think that will that presents any kind of harm to the corner. But that's just my opinion. I'll let the other board members comment on that. But I agree that there needs to be a landscape plan, because it's not very clear to me, and that's a requirement, so we need to have that. Provide a... I think the fifth comment about the native materials such as river rock, a lot of the houses in the neighborhood have that, have used the rocks, and there would be a consistency that will kind of make the house more in line with what's going on around it. Although the existing house doesn't have it, but once you introduce it, you might want to consider using something that is more keen to the neighborhood. So I tend to agree with the fifth comment. Block framed installation. I don't quite understand the sixth one in the context of the building, but I think one thing that I like to mention is the use of the type of windows with the muttons between the glass. I think that really doesn't help the building to sustain its age and character. I think it takes away from it, and also doesn't help the connection with the neighborhood buildings. That basically, I think, concludes my comments, with the massing issue being the biggest one in my mind.
Mr. Chair, just before we go on, I would like to note that a landscape plan is actually not required for this level of project.
As a remodel.
Yeah, for completely
Only
new
new
structure would be.
houses.
Only new house, then.
I mean, you can add it if you'd like. It's just not a requirement. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, yeah, then disregard that comment.
Mr. Carter?
Yes, I'd just like to say, on the last project we said it would quite appropriately that anytime you have the largest home on a sort of homogeneous lots, there's a certain burden. I think in this case we have sort of an opportunity when here's a house that is not maxing out every square foot. It's adjacent to a multiple family dwelling. So I actually think there's an opportunity there to where that if there's some design elements that people can go by and say, hey, look at that. They didn't max it out. They did a very good job with that. I think that a property like this can be as much a showplace as someone that we're asking to please conform to something. So I take seriously the design and massing conditions. And I'm just asking Stephanie, if we approve this with these conditions, do you feel confident that they could be executed? Would they get actually done before the project is built?
Well, I think there are a couple of different answers to your question. One is that if you condition something and approve it, staff will rigorously follow up prior to permit, and then prior to the applicant submitting for the permit, we will also check the plan check set, and then we will review the project, since it's a single-family home, at a framing inspection and then at a final inspection. So as we discussed in our study session 2 weeks ago, there are several checks. So what I heard, though, in your question is, and maybe I'm implying this, are the conditions maybe too much of a burden for staff to be able to confidently work with the applicant in order.
That was the intent of my question.
So if you've noticed, more and more, we are spending more time before you vote on a project to make sure that we understand the conditions very clearly, not only the actual intent of the condition, but we're doing our best to craft the language of the condition so that we can read back to you what you're approving. And as we talked about in our study session, we'd be happy to take a recess and actually craft the condition, and it would take us, 5 or 10 minutes to craft actual language to read back into the record so that you're satisfied. However, if you, based on what you see here, and I think this has happened many times where we have sort of extended ourselves to say, if you approve this project with conditions, we can carry them out. And sometimes, frankly, we are extending ourselves in sort of a positive thinking that the applicant will be flexible and cooperative in order to be able to achieve the desired effect. And as you know, many times the board has pulled back and say, we don't want to put that burden on staff, or we're not that confident that this can be executed appropriately. So just in closing, I can just say that if you're very clear on what it is that you want for us to work with the applicant on, and for example, if you say lower the eave of the addition and consequently the height of the entry, and reformulate the roof so it's more properly integrated. Now that second clause will take more of a judgment call that I think we can be comfortable that we can execute with we can judge with the applicant executing it. However, if we don't feel that it's properly executed, we're coming back to you for your judgment.
Okay, well, then my worst fears are true, that as we approve a motion, we'll have to be fairly specific, and by us, I mean staff and the board.
And we'll help you with that.
Okay.
Okay.
I give it? You get?
Do I? Want to go?
Go ahead. Me? Okay. Ron, I think it's nice. I do think there's some issues. I think there's an inconsistency, as I was trying to say. The marginal lights evoke a style, which is wonderful. It's a very nice style, and I wish you the best. I just don't think the concrete surrounds work with that style. It doesn't really make any sense to me. So I think if you wanted to take it towards what the marginal lights would bring you, I think that would be very nice. I think there's opportunities that come with that. You could actually introduce more either stone or brick with that as a wainscot, which works with that style very nicely. You could use brick. There's a lot of brick homes along Broadview that you could introduce. It would be very nice. So if you had a wainscot of some brick in addition to the brick on the fireplace, I think that'd be very nice. I think there's when you look at the massing, I think the problem, at least I'm having, is that the raised portion, and it's the living room, so you want a higher ceiling. Is that okay? That wasn't rocket science. Okay. I think what looks funny there is it sort of looked like somebody smashed right in the center of the house. So what I'm trying to is kind of build back the roof that got smashed. So I sort of think, I do agree it would be nicer if it was lower, just be consistent with the house. But I think if it was to be high, and that was the flavor of the board, feeling of the board, I'd almost want to raise the master bedroom to the left of the porch, up at that same plate height, and go ahead and let those roof forms work together. So at least when you saw the porch, you had some strength on both sides of the porch. And then the roof that's on the left-hand side, let it go ahead and continue and connect to the main roof, California over, to tie the two together. I think that would really unify that facade much more. I do agree the porch structure and the way that it's done is unfortunate. I think, again, if you went with the style of marginal light, there's really good versions of kind of Craftsman. We throw around Craftsman a lot, but either bungalow style that it's much more of a painted wood detail. You might have a turn column or a square column that's wood that's painted, and it might have moldings on it that would be painted as opposed to plaster. So it has a much more of a wood feel that's painted. And again, if you wanted to go in that direction, and you have the exposed rafters, which again work nicely with the marginal light, all those things work well if you sort of go consistently down that path. And I think I would probably push if we, to do the exterior plant-on grids, again, to be more consistent with the style. I think marginal light is great. Go ahead and show it and be consistent within that style. Get the benefit of that style, and it would be very beautiful. So I think those comments probably, that's about it, yeah. I think that would do it.
Good. That's it.
Take it away.
In addition, overall, it's a good composition. I mean, at first, beautiful color, nice elevations and all that, but there's few things that I'm not sure it's working with the design. Let's start with the big item is the roof. The roof is, I think the roof, it feels like it's two roofs, two separate envelopes next to each other. I think what you should do, I would recommend you to extend the roof, make it as a one envelope, make it look like a one house. And also, the entry porch, I don't think so it's working with the way you have it. I think once you continue the roof and make it into one envelope roof, I think that, and probably, I don't think you would need that entry porch, in my opinion. I think it's making it worse. Maybe I recommend you to look into maybe extending that entrance area and to make it into like a larger porch with a lower wall, and you could be sit down. I could see it. I mean, like I've seen homes like you have the entrance door, you have the vestibule, you have enough vestibule there, covered area. So you would take that, I mean that porch, you extend it out, we have a low wall. I'm picturing that way as a recommendation, and you could do a river rocks instead of the rocks that you proposed, and introduce more river rocks. The fireplace, I don't know the location. I'm okay, but I think it will look better. Probably move it to the south side. I think it will work better with the roof design. I'm not that crazy about your surround moldings. I mean, the less is better, in my opinion. I mean, I don't think so you're gaining. I think you would get, if you have very nice set of windows, and it would do it just fine. I mean, those moldings, it's not helping your design. Also, that window that I asked you about, I think if you are changing the whole house, one window doesn't make sense. I mean, just replace it, make it all new. The eaves. I have a question. The exposed eaves. We're not doing fascias, right? We're no fascias.
No fascias.
So it's going to be exposed rafters. So my question is, what are we doing with the exposed rafter? That's my other question. Is it going to be painted, or it's going to be natural, brown, or whatever? We don't know yet. I need to be clarified. Roof tile. I think that's about it. Maybe my colleagues will add more, or that's about
A lot
it.
has been said, so every item that I was going to cover, you guys covered, so I'm not going to repeat myself. So
That's it. That's about it.
Well, I think,
do we want to hear Stephanie kind of go, or Gabe?
I could,
You wanna-
yes,
Yeah?
yes.
Can you do it?
Okay, I have overall comments on unifying the two roof forms to the existing residence, tying them to the existing and the proposed, bringing them together. I have comments on providing a landscape plan to complement the new construction. Use a more appropriate window trim to complement the overall design, avoiding the precast trim and foam moldings. The windows materials appear to conflict the overall design, so to better, let's see, I have proposed a better window material, such as a wood or fiberglass recessed material, and if grids are going to be proposed, that they be true divided or three-dimensional at least.
not true divided, applied exterior grid.
Applied exterior grid.
yeah.
And then just wrapping up, the last comment that I have was in regards to information on the rafter tails. That's
Okay.
Can I just say one thing? Again, just dovetailing what I was talking about. If it is that style that they're going with, I think there are benefits that they can do. So if they can, hone to a style, I think they're mixing a little bit.
okay.
Okay, so if we can clarify just a couple of points. Many of the board members specifically requested that the additional portion of the house, the plate height be lowered and have the roof tie it together with a consistent eave line. We also heard the possibility of keeping the roof raised and raising the existing bedroom portion so that on either side of the entry there would be a consistent roof and that there would still be two plate heights, but that the roof and the house would not essentially be divided into existing and new form.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that the two are two different ways of bringing the house together.
So that the roof shall be integrated. It's not that the applicant can consider lowering the plate height, but that's not a condition of approval.
I think Mr. Geragos put it really well, that the left side, if it's lifted up, then all we're saying is that the new addition should have a coherent position towards the existing house.
But I do think that the left hand, as we're looking at that elevation, that left-hand lower roof should continue over onto the other roof, so that there truly is a tie, three-dimensional tie.
So that there needs to be a singular roof as it crosses the entry, even though there can be two different heights and two different portions of the roof. Is that well stated?
You mentioned a California frame. Is that?
There's the existing portion, then it's California framing over on top of the other roof. So when you see it, there's a roof that's connecting to the new portion coming over.
That it wouldn't be two separate roofs with a valley in between.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's carrying this roof here over at some point onto
To form a connection?
Okay. But I'll tell you, the one thing he came up with was really great that I thought. One way to minimize that would be to go ahead and bring a wide porch where this roof came down onto a beam height that might be at 7'9" or something like that, and then you put four turn posts there on a wide porch, which could be very nice if you like a wide porch. Bring that whole roof down, you do a nice wide porch with columns on it, it'd be very nice.
So that the entry should be modified so that it is also well integrated into the overall roof, and there is a possibility of enlarging the entry to make a porch.
Which front porch, not entry.
Okay, to enlarge that, to include a front porch at the entry.
You're just continuing that roof form down, which will help lower it to the other plate heights.
So that the important piece that we heard is that the entry, if that entry piece becomes actually a full porch, that the roof should be a continuation of the roof of the house and not a separate roof. And that's a consideration rather than a condition of approval?
That one is, I guess, would be a consideration. A very strong consideration.
Okay, but the piece about the roof being fully integrated, is that portion a condition?
I think that's a condition. You need to have that roof go on to the other. So that would be a condition.
And about the entry as being connected and part of the same roof rather than a separate roof, is that also part of the condition?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Then they have two ways of doing the porch. They can keep the porch how it is in a different way or expand the porch.
Okay, so there's some flexibility there, which
Are we suggesting that
we appreciate.
keep that porch, the eaves?
They have two options to do the porch. You can either take the porch as it is now and do it in a more craftsman style or more wood-based, or expand it and do the wide porch.
Or a third way, a third one, you could take it out completely, that stick-on little little thing. You take it out completely, and then you go out, but without the roof. You just build up like a 3-foot-high wall with a porch open, like a terrace.
Yeah.
So you come in with, you put a little 2 metal gates, and you have a low wall, and then you have a little tile, and then you could, instead of putting that porch, you could do with trellis or nothing, and just leave it, because you have that vestibule. He created that vestibule. He doesn't need more than that. So that will be a third option to invest as a consideration.
Okay, so...
Be easier. You'll have a clean roof design, one piece on top.
So what we'll do is we'll include in the conditions that the entry portion, and especially the roof, is well integrated into the overall design, and then there are alternate considerations for a potential porch. Maintain it as it is, enlarge it with an extension of a roof, or enlarge it as a front porch without a roof over it altogether. Regarding the chimney location, we heard from one board member, they don't care about it, another board member, move it south. So we just want to get a clarity on if there's a strong feeling about that, whether that should be a consideration.
For me, it's really a way that you're going to treat, and a little bit in terms, if you do the porch, I mean, it's sort of a domino. I think if you did the larger porch, it could be on the corner, it wouldn't be a big deal. If you redid the other smaller porch, but you went ahead and did a wainscot with the brick, so there was additional brick that wrapped the front, then again, I think it could be on the corner, not a problem. I think when it's isolated by itself with a small porch, I think it emphasizes its separateness.
Okay, so then really and maybe this should be a consideration, is that the chimney be better integrated into the house through either placement or use of material. And that's a consideration, a strong consideration.
I'll have to move it to the south elevation from the corner.
And an additional consideration would be moving the chimney south.
Yes, feel
to help.
Strongly, it looks better.
I think moving south.
Okay.
So you'd like to condition that?
I think, the furniture, I know they put it, it will do better.
You're saying south, but are you saying south,
it
you
is
mean
south.
east?
South,
You mean east?
No, it's if
south.
you look at the side
South
plan,
elevation.
north is.
North is here, and you want to slide it down this way, don't you?
Right here.
You want to go this way.
It's south elevation. Isn't it south elevation?
But that's north is this way, north is this way.
It's south.
South.
Look at the arrow on the top right.
You want to move it on the south elevation.
On the
Yeah,
south.
on
You're
the
saying
south.
moving it south. That's
No.
not- It's moving
Move
east.
it to the south elevation.
East, south. all right.
Move it to the south elevation. Okay, sorry.
I think we'll have a better way to, as far as
Okay, so we're
furnishing will go
hearing
much
that
better.
moving the chimney is a condition now rather than a consideration. Is the person who made the motion in agreement, or we don't have a motion yet? So
Who wants to make the motion?
I'll make a motion.
You got it.
So we're moving the chimney east on the south onto the south elevation. So I think those were the big configuration and massing issues that you discussed. Regarding the windows, we heard as a condition they need to be three-dimensional muntins, and that the marginal lights or craftsman-style window is the best, and to follow that, all of the details should be retooled so that they correspond with that craftsman feel, and that includes, and this may be a separate condition, we heard eliminating the concrete surrounds, but we didn't hear if you'd like for them to be replaced with something else or not replaced at all.
With a wood surround if they're in the south.
With a wood or hardy plank.
Painted composite or wood surround.
Okay, but not a foam surround. We're always clear on that.
Yes. Not plastered.
Okay, so not plaster, not foam, so some kind of composite or wood material that would give a very precise edge. Regarding one of the conditions that were in the staff report that I think was not clear when you were going through those staff report conditions, When the staff report mentions a block frame, that's so that the frame can actually sit inside the wall rather than be flush with the wall as a nail-on frame or what's called a Z-bar frame. So that's why we're recommending a block frame that would be pushed to the back side of the existing framing, and not to require or request additional furring on the interior, since this is an existing house, and houses of that style aren't dramatically recessed anyway. So would you agree that the windows should be recessed within the interior wall with a wood or composite surround? Do we have that right? Or is a nail-on frame that would have the plaster and the trim in front of the actual face of the surface of the window sufficient?
I think
in front it's consistent with the existing house.
Well, I understood that all the windows are...
Well, they're replacing everything anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but kind of pushing the windows back, I'm not saying we should copy what's there now, but I think when we add the surround, there's another example with exactly the same thing, and it looks like would be consistent with the neighboring buildings and the styles.
I think the issue is whether the jamb is flush to the finished stucco, or it's flush to the wall.
When it's flush, then you said you can add a surround of.
Right. I think they're trying to get the extra depth, so the jamb of the window would be flush to the rough framing, so you get an extra inch of depth.
No,
I mean, I read it will look nicer actually if you give them some depthness and then have a wider jamb at the bottom of the window. It will give a more character and gives some kind of
so you're saying the jamb of the window would be flush to the rough framing as opposed to the plaster?
Right. That if they used a nail-on window, that is what you'd have is the surface of the window frame, you'd have about an inch of the plaster, and then you'd have about a half inch of whatever molding they have. So the window would appear to be about an inch and a quarter, inch and a half recessed. If you ask for what's called a block frame and move that to the inside of the existing framing, it would be more like a 2.5 inch recess, which may be excessive on this style.
Exactly. I don't think that's necessary on the style. I don't think that's necessary.
Do we have agreement on that?
Yes.
That a nail-on frame is okay, but that flush with, we could say that flush with the actual finish is not acceptable. Okay.
Flush to the rough framing.
Okay. Flush to the rough framing. And regarding the, we had a recommendation regarding using more like a river rock type veneer. We anticipate that it wouldn't be actual river rock, but it would be a veneer type, or a brick, rather than cultured stone or stacked stone would be more appropriate. And I think we've also heard that from the board. Is that the case?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it would be nice if it was a brick, but I think it would be more consistent with the neighborhood if it was a brick. I think it'd be more consistent with the neighborhood if it was brick as opposed to river rock.
I think river rocks will look better.
I just don't think there's a lot of river rock in the area, that's all.
Yeah, I think it will look better.
Yeah.
Okay, so the brick, the face brick as a consideration or a condition should be used?
Face brick, everybody likes face brick. Face brick.
Face brick and a consideration for a wainscot?
Yes.
Okay, and that's not a condition. And then a landscape plan to complement the new construction, and that is a requirement prior to permit. And I think we exhausted the conditions, or?
I have. There was a comment on the trellis, which isn't consistent with the style of the house.
What's there?
The trellis on the rear, of the property.
I think if it is more craftsman, the fact that it's wood would be consistent, possibly.
Yeah. But my question, we haven't, is it going to be painted or is it going to be clear? Stained. That's the only question I think. We haven't got an answer.
What would you like it to be?
Well, I would love to be stained, clear and stained.
That can.
Okay, so clear stained or painted a dark accent color to match the roof rafters? Would you suggest that that would be
Yeah, I would give them a little
acceptable?
flexibility. I think you could do a semi-transparent, which gives a sense of the wood, but has a color to it. I don't know. It's on the rear of the house. I give them a little flexibility.
And the rafters,
It's your motion, though.
Well, rafters and the trellis should have the same color.
so could they also be a dark accent,
brown,
painted
yeah.
dark
Yes.
accent color? So
As an option.
consider a paint or translucent stain on the wood, on
More
the
like a wood
exposed
color versus them painting white or...
Okay, so a dark brown or reddish color, that's an accent color.
And then, Mr. Beladian, you had one comment about they were leaving just one window. I'm not sure if that was clearly spelled out in the conditions.
I think he's okay. They're going to replace it.
Okay.
All the
Okay.
windows are going to be replaced. There's no
Okay.
existing or relocated windows on.
Okay.
So we'll include that in a condition, in the window conditions.
And I do think there needs to be, for consistency, that there is a 50% cap on it. So
Yes,
Actually,
that
that's a good
will-
point. Yeah, I'm sorry.
just for consistency, it would be good just to have that, so.
Okay, we have a second.
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 Mr. Carter.
You want to
I'll second. He was always good for a second.
He's always good.
Yeah, I'll second that. I need to second that.
Your last second.
You're getting
I
a
was
T-shirt
first.
with it on.
He was always.
We're going to approve it.
Okay, so there's right
These
before.
are approval or return for redesign? These were all for approval?
This is approval with conditions.
Wow.
Are you comfortable with what we've said, that you can...
I mean, that's a question I asked early on.
And that is why we have spent a fair amount of time trying to make sure that we understand it and that the conditions are precise and that we
They do all
see
that.
Are we comfortable with that, isn't it?
applicants in the audience nodding their head because we know that they're always cooperative.
No changing during construction.
You just designed a beautiful house.
Thanks a lot.
You were not thinking about a porch.
Can we,
Okay, yes,
the roll
Mr. Chair,
call?
members of the board, before I take the motion, just for the record that the Montrose Verdugo City Spar Heights communicated to you in a letter that I presented
Yes.
that they are in support in staff's comments and conditions. Okay, this will be roll call. A motion was made by Mr. Beladian, seconded by Mr. Carter. Mr. Garagos.
Second. No, he's got a...
No, but there has to call on the vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, aye.
Mr. Beladian.
Yes. All right.
Yes.
Mr. Zarifian.
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Mr. Malekian.
yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, we have one set of minutes to approve tonight, June 18th.
Make a motion, we all read it? I read it in email.
It was the minutes of...
Thank you, all of you, for your time.
We're still,
the minutes of June 18th?
Yes.
I would move approval of the minutes for June 18th, 2009.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion was made to approve the minutes of the June 18th meeting. Roll call, Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Mr. Garagos.
Yes.
Mr. Beladian.
Yes.
Riffian.
Yes.
Mr. Malikian.
yes.
Thank you.
Anything else?
We do. For staff and board business.
We have the bittersweet task of putting before you a resolution thanking Mr. Carter for his service here on the board. He was certainly a faithful and constant member. Although not an architect, he certainly brought in the much-needed perspective of a longtime community resident and activist, and he always showed, in my opinion, true concern for the neighborhoods, and and having the design review board approve things that, improve the neighborhood and made the houses fit in with them.
Do I get a chance to rebuttal? If I may, Tim, I'd just like to say thank you to my colleagues and to the staff, and to take a moment just to make note of how special this really was for me to be a member of this design review board. This little body here sort of was created in my living room. About 15, 18 years ago, a group of homeowners and Jerry Milner was a longtime councilman, and we were having large infill properties create. It was a large homes impacting the neighborhoods, and it was almost a crisis situation, and a group of neighbors met in my living room. I, was there. I handed out the chips, but I played a part in it. But a lot of members approached City Council, and City Council encouraged them to come to City Council and to propose a design review ordinance. It was a two-way street. Council knew that there was a crisis situation, and so they were looking for some homeowners to come forward. They wanted to have some impetus behind it. So a number of us went down to City Council and stated what was happening. Parenthetically, at that time, I read an article in the New York Times about these projects. Now, mind you, this is 15, 18 years ago. And I called a lady in the Baltimore area. There was a homeowners organization mentioned. I called her, and she said, "Oh, yeah, there's mansionization." And I said, "Mansionization? And this was a woman in Baltimore. And then I spoke to the news press, and so they said, "Oh, yes, this is mansionization. Everybody knows about mansionization." And so they wrote it, and it became sort of a talking point, not unique to Glendale. They were experiencing it in Beverly Hills and Waxahachie, Texas. It was not a unique situation. But then the design review ordinance was passed with a design review board. And there were study sessions, and I was just thinking tonight that those original study sessions, I think they were at the Civic Center, over on Glendale Avenue. There were some of them there. And so the ordinance and a panel, you gentlemen were created. So it was a unique opportunity to me to be appointed to this board. And mind you, just for clarification, your appointment goes with your city councilman. And Bobby Safian was my city councilman. So he's gone, I'm gone. So I would like to make note that I got to be a good citizen, but I didn't have to serve that long. It's almost like I got to do the dishes. I got to do the dishes the night everybody decided to have salad. So, but I must point out that my colleagues here do an extraordinary job and are very giving of themselves and their time and their expertise. Projects that come to this board, you could just say, "Nah, I don't like it," but they really do pitch in and try and help the applicant and serve the community. I must make note of that in passing. What I will make note of also to those people that in the future will appear before this board. I remember early in the process, I was asked a question by City Council. It was in regard to floor area ratio, and Carl Raggio asked me, we were proposing a floor area ratio, that there would actually be one, and he said, "Do you think that should include the garage?" And we had talked about it, but I hadn't formulated a reply, and so I was hesitant, a little stumbling, and I just point to the speakers. When you come before this body, this now is some 10 years in the doing, you really have to have your facts collected, present things in a non-emotional, factual manner. That's for the homeowner, people talking about a project, and also there's a bit of a burden, an increasing burden, on architects to have an understanding of what the city is trying to do. They have a conflicting process. They're trying to please their client, but they also have to have some kind of sensitivity to what the process is about and what we're trying to accomplish here in Glendale. So, having said that, I plan to spend more time with my family. family. So I thank you, staff and everybody in the city of Glendale.
Who wants
So
to
I'm making a
top
motion that he was a swell guy and you're going to be sorely missed. That's my motion. Is there a second?
Will be missed.
that? Second.
Second. They're all second leg.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, I for one, we're gonna miss you greatly. I just when you told me about the news, I was very sad because I thought Mr. Carter always brought very fresh perspectives to things that we tend to kind of formalize in our minds, and it was always, I was always waiting to hear what Mr. Carter has to say. So we're going to miss that a
We're
lot.
going to miss the voice.
And also the very authoritative voice.
Powerful voice.
So we're going to try to speak like you.
Okay. Well, I'll get to watch you on Channel 6, and I'll be as I'm sipping that glass of white wine, I'll say, that's good, they're still there.
Making sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? That's it? Are we done?
I believe so.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, guys.